I guess it doesn't. Well, good morning. My name is Greg Rocket. I'm a graduate of the Hilton College from 1986. I'm also chairman of Eric's Club, which is the sponsor organization of this lecture series. And we're pleased today to have former alumni, former student of the college to speak to you today. It's Kirk Reese, general manager of the Los Angeles Country Club. Let me tell you a little bit about what Eric's Club is and what it should mean to you. Eric's Club right now members 20, counting Kirk, accomplished alumni of this college who are leaders in the industry. It's a diverse group that is represented by many regions of the country and many segments of the industry. The goal of Eric's Club, or one of them, is to facilitate a better awareness of the Hilton College in the industry and in the community, and also foster connectivity between the alumni and alumni leadership and the students. And obviously that's working, because today we have the largest crowd of lecturing members we ever had. We've got 10 today, I believe. We've got David Chagg, who represents the Country Club in the Boston area, and he's a graduate from 1977. We have the founding member and professor emeritus, Dr. Rappol. We have Dorothy Nicholson, the past chairman, from 1977 graduate. Another past chairman of Eric's Club, Nick Massid, 73 graduate. Claire Sullivan Jackson is also here, graduate of 85. Dave Smalley's with us, graduate of 79, who's local, and Bob Cowan's also local, graduate of 76, he's at the Omni. This year's the first year that Eric's Club has actually admitted non-lecturing members. It's an exciting year for us, because it increases our membership from 20 to 29. We now have 9 additional members that are sort of lecturers in waiting. They will hopefully be an involved part of the Eric's Club membership and help foster that connectivity to the student body and raise the awareness of the alumni leadership. And we've got one non-lecturing member with us today, that's Ricky Oberoi. We have a lunch at the end of this lecture to welcome the new inductees. And hopefully you'll take the opportunity to mingle with the alumni, learn a little bit about their careers. We're going to learn about Kirk's today. But if you see us in the hallways and you want to learn a little bit about our background and ask some questions about what it's like 20 years after, feel free. So I'm going to turn this actually over to David, who's going to introduce Kirk, and I hope you enjoy the lecture. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be back here at the University of Houston. I graduated here in 1977, and at the time I worked in private clubs. Houston Country Club was the spot, and I was very fortunate. In fact, Bob Southwell and Red Steger are here from my days of working with the private club industry in Houston, and I was fortunate to get involved with them to teach a class on club management here at the university at the same time, and that's how I met this gentleman to my right. Kirk Reese let's take you back to probably circa 1988. I had just gone to the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts as a general manager. We were about to host the U.S. Open in June of 1988. I'd only been there about 6 or 7 months. I needed to develop a management team over time, but I was desperate. And I was at a conference for club managers in Atlanta, Georgia, and I only had 24 hours that I could get down there and be there for a short period of time. And I was leaving the conference, going down an escalator, and I looked over and there's Kirk Reese going up the escalator. And so we said hi to each other, and I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was looking for a job. And I said, "Wait at the top of the escalator." So I turned around, went up, said hi to Kirk, and on a handshake, he became another team member for us at the country club. I gave him hours after graduation to make it from Houston to Boston, as it was less than a month going into a major tournament. And he turned around, packed his bags, and was up there with me and stayed the next 6 years. I was very fortunate. He elevated through his own work ethic, elevated his way to club manager, lived on the property for us, and a very large house that we had for him, and also a very large salary. So I was able to keep him the 6 years. He then went on to Los Angeles Country Club, Chevy Chase, and I'm sure he's going to tell you all about it. Kirk did return for a short period of time to work with me again for a week in 1999 as we hosted the Ryder Cup matches, and he came back and managed the locker room operations there for us as well. So we have a long working relationship, but Kirk is a leader. Kirk in the industry is well respected. He's at one of the premier country clubs in the industry at Los Angeles Country Club. But he's also been a leader in the Club Managers Association, working on different boards and committees. He's currently serving on the board of the National Club Association, which is a legal legislative group that oversees in Washington, D.C., legal legislative issues that deal with our industry, the private club industry. If you go to the Los Angeles Country Club website, of course, I'm not a member there, you're not a member there, you can't get very far on the website, but you can get to the front page. And there is an article today about the reconditioning of the golf course there. Kirk was instrumental at getting the Golf Course Architect of the Year, Gil Hands, to come in and work on restoration improvements to the North Course at LA Country Club. And you'll see the accolades that they've given Kirk for his work at golf course restoration. Also to note, Los Angeles Country Club went into bid with the United States Golf Association for probably the most premier amateur event in the world, the Walker Cup matches. And they are going to Los Angeles Country Club, and that's a result of Kirk Reese. But Kirk is somebody that you can be proud of, represents this university and this college. It's an honor to have him join the Eric's Club with the rest of us. And I would say he's a leader, he's a mentor, and he's a friend. And I certainly hope that you get to know him today. Thank you all. Kirk Reese.
Okay, let's see if I can turn this thing on. Okay. Great. Oops. Let me stick it in my pocket there. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I couldn't tell who's more nervous, David, introducing me, or me standing up here after being introduced. I'm here to tell you that there is life after graduation. I'm 22 years out of the Hilton College. It has been a great foundation for me to start my career, to go up to, I think, what I consider to be a very fine career in club management. And while I am only 44 years old, I've had quite the resume. I've had quite the relationships that I found with my fellow club managers and with a lot of luminaries along the way. This has been quite a ride for me. To go back, I am actually a native Texan. I'm a sixth-generation Texan. For those of you who are from Texas, that's meaningful, and for those who aren't, you'll understand probably after a few more years here. My mother is a German immigrant. She came over in the 50s. Met my dad actually up in Amarillo, Texas, where I'm from. Was born there. My dad has family roots in Texas that go all around the state. Corsicana, if you know where that is, south of Dallas. La Mesa, over in the oil patch near Midland and Odessa. In fact, he still, I think, holds the county high jump record in La Mesa. I don't think it's very high, but that's all right. Essentially, I've grown up in the state of Texas and in the South in general. My dad was a club manager. Before that, he was a hotel manager. Before that, he ran a restaurant. Before that, he was a plumber. Oddly enough, but I think in looking back at my career and in looking back at the foundation for where I ended up where I was, it really was about relationships. The people who I dealt with during my time, both growing up, and this is long before I thought about going to the Hilton College in high school, and even before I thought about a career in club management, I was meeting people through my father and establishing relationships. So if there's one thing that you can take away from this today, is that all these people sitting in this front row involved with Eric's Club are here to help you develop relationships that hopefully will further you in your career. I've had 3 mentors. Obviously my father, who I adore. Unfortunately, he passed away about 8 years ago. But he's a terrific man. In fact, at dinner last night with Bob Southwell and Barbara Southwell and David, we reminisced a little bit about my dad. I think Red Steger, who's here today, also knew my dad fairly well. He ran the Amarillo Country Club up in Amarillo, Texas, and fashioned a great career in club management after being the hotelier of the year for the Quality Inn Corporation in the early 70s. Was a great foundation for me growing up. All of my earliest memories from 5, 6, 7, and 8 years old were me going down to the state docks with my dad to pick up shrimp for the Sunday buffet when we lived in Mobile, Alabama. I had a great upbringing, getting to know, from my perspective, when my dad ran the Quality Inn, getting to know football players, because all of you who know anything about football, and there's probably a few of you here, know the Senior Bowl is played in Mobile, Alabama. And so I got to meet not only all the greatest college players of their day, but I got to meet all the professional coaches, scouts, etc., so forth. So that was probably my first attraction. The thing that really brought me and drew me into hospitality was the fact that, gee, look at all the great people I get to meet. And certainly that is carried on throughout my career. I did move around a little bit. My dad, we moved from Amarillo, where I was born when I was 4. We moved down to Mobile. I was fortunate to be in Mobile, Alabama for 10 years. If you can say fortunate to be in Alabama for 10 years, maybe that's an oxymoron, I'm not sure. But I really did appreciate the time that I spent with my family down in Mobile. I appreciated the culture of hospitality that permeates the South. And for those of you who aren't from the South, it really is one of the most hospitable places in the world. The way that people treat guests really should be carried on throughout other parts that I've traveled and been with. But when you're a guest of someone in the South, you truly are. You feel very special, and how we recreate that feeling is part of our job in this business, and certainly part of my job as a private club manager. I did mention my dad as a club manager. I'm a second-generation club manager. One of the things that my dad did in this business was, when he left hotels, he went into private clubs. And he made a very distinctive choice. He was at the time the number 1 hotelier in the Quality Inn Corporation, which I don't think probably rings very, rings that it's such a big deal. But in 1972, Quality Inn was a very large corporation, one of the most respected hotel corporations in the world. And the fact that my dad was chosen their manager of the year, and at that point decided that he wanted to make a better life in another field, or another part of the field in the private club industry, really did ring true, that the private club field had a lot of great things to offer to he and my family. As my dad continued on for 8 years at Skyline Country Club in Mobile, we moved up back to Amarillo, Texas, where he took over the Amarillo Country Club. Moving back to Amarillo was something my dad wanted to do. Certainly taking my mom and the 3 kids back At an age where I was 14 years old, I thought to myself, my God, I'm leaving all of my friends. I'm going to this outpost in Texas where there are probably still Indians running around. Needless to say, it wasn't that way. Honestly, I had a great experience moving back to Texas. In fact, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. The educational system in Amarillo was actually much better in secondary schools than what I was experiencing in Alabama. I cannot express my gratitude to my high school teachers in terms of the level of education I received moving back from Alabama to Texas. And I was able somehow to score high enough, even though I didn't really perform at the highest levels in high school. I did perform well enough to have an interest for the honors program here at the university. So when I took the SAT, I scored, in my junior year, I scored, I think, almost 1,200, which I think the scoring system has changed, or at least I'll tell myself that, because it's a low number now I think. But when I came down for a look, by that time, I had known that I wanted to be in hospitality. And that's after my first job in hospitality was literally digging a ditch. When I was 14 years old, my dad said, you know, Kirk, if you have an interest in this business, we're going to find out right now. And this is summer. I was just as a freshman in high school. He said, I'm going to take you out and put you to work. But you're not going to work for me. This was a common pattern with my father growing up. You're going to work for a golf course superintendent. And I went out in arguably 105-degree heat in the month of July in the panhandle of Texas. And I don't know how familiar you are with the soil structure of West Texas, but they have something that's called caliche, which is a hardened limestone. My first day on the job, I was handed a pickaxe, taken out to a point on the golf course and told to dig until I hit something. And I started pickaxing through, and about 6 hours later, many blisters later, I hit something. And it was a meter box that had been long buried on the golf course. It's an irrigation box, essentially. About the time I hit that, I was about 4.5 feet down in the hole. And as I looked up, I could see blue sky, and I thought, thank goodness I'm finished. And I felt this sprinkle of rain. And as I'm looking up, and it's 105 degrees, and I'm feeling this rain, and all of a sudden I realize the sprinkler systems are on. And all the dirt that I put in on one side of the hole is now running back into the hole. As I scramble out, I realize I've just been indoctrinated into the hospitality industry. And it was actually a very important thing for me. It was, most people call it a practical joke. Some people call it a hazing incident, especially after digging that hole. But it was my acceptance from the grounds crew that I was another worker, that I wasn't Fred Reese's son, and I hadn't been hired because I was Fred Reese's son. That I actually did work, and that I worked hard. And if anything, in my early years, I tried to work harder than most. I tried to set the example. I tried to make others around me better. I tried to be part of a team, even if I didn't lead the team. And I ended up spending most of my high school career working between that job and another job in a mall. I was actually working in a food stand in the Amarillo, in a Westfield Mall in Amarillo, Texas, and I was a caramel corn kid, as they say. So I did that after school, and then in the summertime I worked on the golf course. Also growing up, and it's not without great note, that part of the experience of my dad being a club manager was meeting other club managers. And through my high school career, I was able to meet a number of great people in club management, people who serve as role models then and still do. Actually, several of them are here, Bob Southwell and Red Steger. Bob Southwell, the longtime manager of Houston Country Club, and W.R. Red Steger was the manager of the River Oaks Country Club from its inception. They were role models for my father. They were friends of my father, along with Sally Burns Rambo, who was one of the great first ladies of club management here in Texas. That woman could throw a party. Boy, could she throw a party. Eric Bourget, that's an old name, something from the Hilton, the old Hilton family. If you, and all of you are maybe too young to remember the Shamrock Hilton. It was torn down actually when I was a junior here at the college, which is a shame. It was one of the grand hotels here in Houston over by the medical center. Eric Bourget then became the manager of the Petroleum Club in Houston. I worked at the Petroleum Club here during my time, amongst other things. Werner Sands, who was a great, another great friend of my dad's, who ran, following Eric, the Petroleum Club. Peter Ditlev, who I was farmed out to, and when I say farmed out, my dad said it's time for you really to learn food and beverage if you're going to learn the business, so he sent me to, of all places, Midland, Texas, and the Petroleum Club of Midland. And so I worked there for a summer, and I worked in the kitchen. And I got up at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, joined the chef Curly, and that's a great name for a chef, isn't it? You have high aspirations of food, but I will tell you that man could flat out cook. And although he would never share a recipe, he was kind in showing me technique. And we had a wonderful, wonderful time actually listening to great music early in the morning until the rest of the kitchen arrived, and we work a split. And we go from 4:30 in the morning until typically about 1 o'clock, and then I take a break and come back around 3:30 or 4. And I would do that and then until 8 or 9 at night, and I would do that throughout the entire summer. And then every other weekend would drive back to Amarillo from Midland, which was about a 4.5-hour drive, unless you drove really fast like I did. I was also able to meet Brian Crow. Brian's a wonderful gentleman, and Brian was the assistant manager of the Houston Club here under Dave Jackson. Brian actually has played a big role in my life. He's the chairman of the board for the National Club Association. Obviously, people like J.J. Wagner, past president of Club Managers Association, I met him during my time at the Outpost in Midland, Texas. J.J. is a great friend of mine. He runs Bel Air Country Club, which oddly enough is now about 1 mile away from the Los Angeles Country Club where I work. And we have a great, I think, a great relationship and a great rivalry on the golf course to boot. And finally, in fact, my third mentor, and obviously with my father and David Chagg, was Jim Brewer. And Jim Brewer I met actually, it was 1980, and even before I had, even before I had a driver's license, Jim Brewer shows up in Amarillo, Texas. He was on the national board of the Club Managers Association and was attending a meeting of Texas club managers in Amarillo that my dad was hosting. I was assigned to pick him up from the airport without a driver's license and drive him to the conference, which I did. Little did we know at that time Jim Brewer would come to play a large part in my life as a mentor, which he still continues today. Jim Brewer was for 34 years the general manager of the Los Angeles Country Club. So if you're noticing a theme here, all the people that I met way, way, way back through this college and through my association with the Texas Club Managers are the people who have supported me throughout my entire career. 3 are mentors. And when so I would urge you again, if you take nothing else away from this, when this group meets here on the campus, please come out and get to know them, get to know us. As I came to the Hilton College, I was recruited by Dr. Ripoll and to be a part of the honors program here. Little did he know I really didn't have the credentials to be an honors student. When I was in high school, one of my fellow waiters summed it up. He was a gentleman, actually, as a part-time job, was a waiter. As his full-time job, he did special education. His name was William, and we called him the Big W. And the Big W's advice to me when he heard I was going off to college is, Kirk, there are 2 ways that you can graduate from college. And I said, W, what are those? And he said, you can graduate summa cum laude or laude how come. So I graduated laude how come. I took that under my belt and I said, well, that was a good way to go. I actually, when I got here, I became involved in a number of things. One of my favorite things was intramural sports, which I played actually with Mr. Rocket on several occasions. I don't know if the legend is still around here, but the Hilton College team actually won the intramural softball championship in 1987, and I was a part of that wonderful team, I think, as was a little after Greg's time, but we brought home the medal. I got involved in the student chapter, the Cougar chapter, the Club Managers Association, and again, reiterating, my involvement with that chapter also gave me great involvement with industry contacts. I can't tell you how many people, by the time I was a senior, were counseling me on my career path. People that I knew marginally, people I didn't know really very much at all, would come up to me or call me and say, "Kirk, I know you're graduating. I have something you need to think about. Have you thought about coming here? Have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that?" Truly, this type of relationship is special, and certainly with club managers, as it is with hoteliers, and in our hospitality business in general, it's all about relationships. I did get a job, like most of us in this class. I worked semi-full-time when I was a student here. I worked at the Petroleum Club of Houston. I helped start a staffing service for private clubs here while I was here. We actually went out and worked different parties and events. I spent a few days in the Fiesta Room at the Houston Country Club on occasion, as David would know. And all of those experiences really gave me a sensibility about what is hospitality. How are private clubs around the city of Houston? And I know Houston has a number of great restaurants and hotels, but it truly has, if you don't know the statistics, it has two of the greatest private clubs in the country, in River Oaks and in Houston Country Club, widely recognized as being the best of the best. Their city clubs also, the Petroleum Club where I worked at was also noted. But there, I think when I was in school, there were about 75 or 80 private clubs within 50 miles of the city of Houston, and we worked at just about all of them. And we worked at various different levels of clubs, and it was through that, and quite frankly, many of my cohorts, many of my fellow classmates got jobs in the club industry, not just as part of becoming a waiter, hey, stay as a bank waiter, but actively in management positions following graduation. They became assistant managers upon graduation, or like me, became a management intern. Tom Chouse, my senior year roommate, is a general manager of a club. Nick and Wally Smith, both general managers of clubs. Dennis Petrish, Joe Bendy at River Oaks, at the River Oaks Country Club, were all classmates of mine. There was a huge influence, particularly in the 2 years prior and after me, of club managers, a large concentration of club managers at great clubs. And it's because of these types of relationships and contacts that were brought forward. I have other friends, Paul Reinsmith, my junior year roommate, who actually David knows pretty well. Paul, I should say, is a wonderful guy from West Hartford, Connecticut. When he graduated, he went to work for a gentleman by the name of Ming Tsai. And if you watch the Food Network every now and then, Ming Tsai is one of the top chefs that's featured there. His restaurant, Blue Ginger in Needham. Well, Paul was the opening manager of Blue Ginger. And if you open Ming Tsai's cookbook, his first one anyway, you'll see a picture of Paul with the service staff. And one of my favorite thoughts about Paul is how passionate he was about service, and still is about service. I kind of shied him. He did get smart and go into the banking business following that, but he spent a number of years there. Another one of my really good friends, Mike Hatzfeld, ended up in the St. Regis chain. I think his father actually was a vice president in the Sheraton chain over in Europe. Michael is German, and in fact went back to Europe following his graduation here. But I've been able to visit with Mike on several occasions. I went over to visit him when he was running the Imperial Hotel in Vienna. And if you've ever been there, that's a former palace. That's right in what they call inside the ring in Vienna. And it is truly one of the great hotels in the world. He has opened since then the St. Regis in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he was just tabbed, I think, 2 years ago to open the St. Regis in Deer Valley in Utah. So he is doing a great job there, but he is one of those guys who I look to on occasion to give me advice about what's going on in my business, and certainly someone who I think is a great friend and someone who I use as a resource in my career. Now, my personal philosophies, why I am, who I am, what I am, that reflect on my path to success. Again, I'm 44 years old. I'm married. I have a wonderful, wonderful wife. Her name is Monique. I have married very well. She is a partner in a law firm, Trotman Sanders, based in Irvine. We live in Pasadena. In about 3 weeks, we expect to have our first child. So, I should say it's our first child. It is the second time I've been married. I have a beautiful daughter, Alexandra, who is 6 years old, and I'm hopeful, as we're expecting a boy, that my son is as vivacious as my daughter, Alexandra. When I graduated, and this is something I've always carried through, and it's something that has been instilled in me from all the people around me, a belief in myself. I will make a difference in whatever I do. It's instilled because I care about what I do. And I see so many of my compatriots who have started in this business, and they've gotten about 2 or 3 years into it and realized that, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I don't care. Maybe I'm not happy. This doesn't fit me. I will tell you that if you don't have the commitment to this business, because it is a business which is so personal. Hospitality is very personal. How you take care of people is very personal. In whatever you do, either in restaurants and clubs and hotels, you really do have to have that type of commitment. And if you're not happy doing this type of thing, and in my case at a very, very high level, and for some people who have high expectations, then that's going to be an issue. I've always been a glass half full guy. I always am an optimist about things. I've tried not to be too much of a cynic as I grow up and as I see things go on in my life. But if you carry optimism about people, and it's not just about the people that I serve, but the optimism of the people that I serve with, then they respond to that. Have fun. I think David could probably tell you whenever we're together, we have fun. I like to smile. It's something that one of the things is I get reviewed by my board on an annual basis. And one of the quirks about a club, and this is in the club business, and this is really about in my own particular instance, every year I have a 9-member board that votes on my job. So every December, in fact, on December 11th of this year, we will have our annual meeting. We'll then the new members of the board will then retire into a little room, and they'll sit down, and I will be reappointed as general manager and COO of the Los Angeles Country Club, or I will not. It's kind of an odd thing. So it always puts you on the spot. But one of the great things, leading up to that, is always I get a review, and that review tells me one of the great things we like about you, Kirk, is you're optimistic, you're smiling, you look like you're having fun. We know you enjoy your job, and that's so important because I do enjoy my job. I enjoy being successful. I enjoy working with the people that I work with. I enjoy being able to assemble a great team around me, and that's something that I will tell you all as you grow up and get in this business is you have to surround yourself with people who will make you successful. And at the early point of your career, when you move up into your career, whatever it is, if you're going to be in marketing, if you're going to be in operations, if you're going to be in finance, if you're going to be, in whatever, find people who will support you. My first job, my first real job was with David. And for he says 6, it was 6.5. So it just shows you time flies when you're having fun. When I worked with David, I cannot imagine working with someone who was more supportive of me and more supportive of my career. David would never tell you this, but I will. David, at the time that he became what's known as a Certified Club Manager, CCM. It's a great designation in the private club business. It means that you have studied a lot. It means you've taken a test and passed an accreditation, which only about 20 to 25% of club managers have. David was the youngest CCM ever when he achieved it. And congratulations. Now this shows you the commitment that he had. When I took the test and passed, I became the youngest. When one of our young assistants, Brent Tartamella, took the test and he passed, he became the youngest. So it just goes to show you the type of facility or facilitation that David Shagg, and a premium that David Shagg placed on developing and mentoring young staff. It's not that he brought people in and said, hey, we're going to get you to pass a test. He brought you in and said, hey, we're going to make you the best club manager you can be. And if you look at the amount of club managers that have worked for David now, he has quite an impressive list. And it just, my name is on that list certainly, but there's at least a dozen others who run their own clubs now and who run very nice clubs around the country. So I think I did well in picking and choosing a mentor in David. Another thing on my path to success, I focus on goals in my life and my work. I am extremely goal-oriented. Now, I am not process-oriented, and you would never want to confuse them. In the types of operations that I've run in the last 10 years, and I think when David said it best when he was looking for help just before the 1988 U.S. Open, my involvement with the country club was one where I was brought in, and quickly I went from management intern as I started, a well-paid management intern, by the way, up to assistant manager in 3 months, and clubhouse manager 4 months later. So in 7 months, I went from someone who's basically supposed to hold a plate and try and figure out which way to go to clubhouse manager, which is the gentleman who runs, or not the gentleman, but the manager who runs all of the clubhouse operations, which are all the restaurants, working with the chef, the department heads, housekeepers, and really is I think was a prestigious job title that took me 2 years to grow into. And I'm going to share with you how that first step happened. I'd been at the club 3 months. We had gone through a U.S. Open. I was living on the 3rd floor of the clubhouse at the Country Club in Brookline, which is the oldest country club in America. And I remember after going out somewhat late one night with some of the cooks and things, I arrived back early, about maybe 2:30, 3:30, something like that. And I was laying in my very expansive room that's about the size of this dais here. And and about 6 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock at my door. And this is how big the room was. I reached over from the bed and opened the door. And the door swung open, and there was David Shagg, looking about how he looks today. And he hasn't aged at all. And I remember as he stood there in the hallway, and it was dark in the room and light in the hallway, and as he surveyed the room and then looked down, and I obviously was still laying in bed and wondering why I wasn't fully dressed and in a tie as he was standing there. And he said, "Can you be in my office in 20 minutes?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I remember his look around the room thinking, I've always wondered what he was thinking, if he's thinking, boy, should I really do this? But he closed the door, I went downstairs, and that's how I got my first promotion. I worked hard, and I think it's worked out well. As I went on, I found that I had to constantly challenge myself and those who were around me. We had a great nucleus of talent, and it was a wonderful place where you could bring in, I think, people, put them into positions of responsibility. And really, this is one of the great things about the people that I hire, and is you don't have to give them a lot of minutia in direction. You simply have to say, I want you to be great, and I want you certainly to be better than the person before you. And when I left the country club, and I went to Los Angeles Country Club and got my first general manager position at a club in Washington, D.C. called Chevy Chase Club. After about 1 year, I realized I couldn't do it on my own. I felt like David probably felt just before the U.S. Open in 1988. I needed help. I needed to make cultural changes and deep personnel changes in the club in order for us to be successful. And so I turned around and started hiring some really, really, really good people. I hired a chef who has won gold medals in the Culinary Olympics, Joachim Buchner. I hired a gentleman who many of you don't know. His name is Igor Jarecki, and his name probably doesn't mean much to you. He means a lot to me, but for what he's done, not only for what he did at Chevy Chase, but earlier in my career. Igor was the manager of a restaurant called the Inn at Little Washington. And if those of you who don't know that, I think it's one of the top 3 restaurants in America. It was the first restaurant ever to receive a perfect 30 in Zagat guide, and that was while Igor was there. And so when I brought Igor in, and I actually recruited him out of retirement where he was in Poland, I called Poland and I said, I got to find Igor Jarecki. He found him and managed to bring him back within about 2 months. And his demeanor, along with my executive chef, and my executive chef could cook anything. But the thing that was so impressive about my executive chef, who, by the way, gave up a job that was basically 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, working for the Inter-American Development Bank. My chef came out, and the first thing that we asked the chef is, what's the most important part of cuisine in this club? And without blinking an eye, he said, the hamburger. And you would think, okay, here's Chevy Chase Club, one of the most prestigious clubs in America. It has a great membership. It's over 100 years old. It is the backbone blue blood club of that area. And he said the hamburger is more important than anything else I cook. Why? Because he had looked at the numbers and had decided that he served about 27,000 hamburgers a year, and that was about at least 20 times greater than any other menu item, so he knew it had to be perfect. He had a big get-it factor, and from that point forward, I knew I was going to be successful with him no matter what he did. I brought in a lot of other people. Dean Graves, who's a great golf course manager, a superintendent of golf course operations, which is a big component of our jobs in country clubs. And all these people, all they did was focus on upgrading, push, hone, and sharpen the sword. It really is something that I demand in my subordinates now. It's something that when you come out, I will look for in each of you. If you work at the Los Angeles Country Club, you are going to make whatever you do better than the person before you, and at least better than the person before you, if not more. And then the other thing that I think was important to me was be ready to hit the curveball. This is not, there's not a linear path to a great successful career. There are going to be bumps in the road. There are going to be things, that happen to you personally. There are going to be things that happen to you either professionally, things that are out of your control. Be prepared for those things. I think in the last 3 years we've seen, since the economy's been out, good people, lots of good people looking for jobs. It's not their fault. And I think to a great extent that does ring true. But in my own life, I've been divorced. Obviously that's had a great impact upon me. But I will tell you, I am ultimately a happier guy because I've met someone who I think is perfect for me, and someone who couldn't be more perfect for me. So in your career and in your life, you have a long way to go. I expect a lot of curveballs, and be ready to lay off the fastball and hit the curve and be successful. Another belief I have, and this is really for all of you here, and this is the cream always rises to the top in this business. Now, Dorothy, who used to work in the bowels of the River Oaks Country Club, has fashioned an extremely successful career. I think all of us, my using a pickaxe in West Texas when it's 105 degrees, those are all foundation issues. You have to be willing to do the hard work. People say that I've had great luck. People say I have a great resume and I've had great luck. I think it's been a combination of a number of things, but I'm going to tell you what I define as good luck, and that is where opportunity meets preparation. You have to be prepared to take advantage of opportunities. You have to understand when it is time for you to perform, when it's time for you to step up in responsibilities. David Shagg gave me an opportunity because he thought I was prepared for it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't know it was coming. It was like what they call a bolt out of the blue, a lightning bolt that comes out of the clear blue sky. And that rise through the organization, through his organization, really laid the foundation for me being in a leadership position early. I have no qualms about hiring a graduate, 23, 22, 21 years old, out of a program like this, if you have worked hard and if you prove to me in the course of the first 3 to 6 months that you work with me, I have no qualms giving you $1 million worth of responsibility. I did that at Chevy Chase a lot. I did it because I had to. And I hired people like Heather McMiniman out of Widener University. I hired Nan Mahanes out of Baltimore Country Club who had been there for a little while. I hired a lot of people that I would parse out. Evan Malloy, $1 million. This is a great story. Evan Malloy came out of American University. He was a wonderful, wonderful young man. Had a business degree. Started as our caddy master, guy who runs caddies, in and out. And he said, he came up to me one day. He says, "Mr. Reese, I would like to, go into food and beverage. I want to be a general manager one day." And I said, "Great." I said, "First, before you do that, you're going to keep your day job, meaning you're going to still be caddy master. But what I'm going to have you do is you're going to go work in another restaurant. Not in my restaurant here, but in another restaurant. I want you to get a handle on the food and beverage business, and I want you, if you like it, because it's such a core element of what we do in private clubs." He said, "No problem." He went out and got a job at Houston's. I didn't make a phone call, didn't do anything, but I, along the way, had members and several of my staff members go out and check up on him to see how he's doing. After about 3 months of that, and Evan worked, I think he worked for us about 45 hours a week, and he worked at that restaurant, Houston's, about 30 hours a week. And we said, and we finally said to him, "Evan, we think it's time for you to start our management internship with Chevy Chase Club." So it was the end of the golf season. We were able to move him out of that position relatively with ease. We were getting very busy in our food and beverage operation with the Christmas coming up. And Evan has been greatly successful. He's now an assistant manager at Woodfield Country Club down in Florida. And he's doing, in fact, the first assistant manager, doing very well down there. But he was a guy who really took on responsibility, wanted the responsibility, wanted growth opportunity. And I will tell you that when you do that, and I don't recall David coming in and ever telling me, "Hey, I want you to do this or do this or do this." I just did things. I did things that made sense to me. If I saw something that was disorganized, I organized it. If I saw people wallowing, I helped them out. And I think that that's a great thing to do when you come out of school, or as you're still in school and working at other places, which I'm sure most of you do. One of my favorite quotes from golf that also applies here, and goes back to what I define as good luck, is, "The harder I work, the luckier I get." Good things happen, not to those who wait, but to those who really work hard. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Gary Player, one of the great grinders. I think he has the third most victories in the PGA Tour across the world. He may be actually the worldwide leader in victories. Is a guy who was never the big guy, never hit a long ball, but you could not outwork him. He's just a terrific guy and a great motivational speaker. Another key to success, the entrepreneurial spirit. It doesn't matter where you work and what organization that you're going to work in, you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to find opportunities. You have to achieve things in order to be successful. It's expected. It's interesting. My club is 111 years old this year. Our clubhouse celebrates its 100th anniversary, and we are trying to innovate new programs every year. We have 50 social events a year. Probably 25 of them change year to year. Most of those that don't change are actually the traditional holiday events, the Christmas events and things like that. We innovate at least 25 events, one every 2 weeks every year, in addition to the other things that we do. Even with our crowd, which, average age 62, a very conservative crowd, they do want to see things different. They want to see things change, and they want to see things better. They want to know that we innovate. They want to know that we still carry that entrepreneurial spirit. Another piece of advice, you stay away from Facebook moments. And I know all of you know the power of Facebook. all of you don't know that we do check Facebook. When you send in that resume, we check it. We go find you. We look you up. And if we find you, at the bottom of a bar somewhere, not so good for you. Good for the next guy in line for the job, not so good for you. Protect your reputation. That's that goal is protect your reputation, even this early. It is so important in my business especially. I cannot tell you what my reputation means to me and my club. If I have a sullied reputation, if I have a Facebook moment, if I have something like a DUI, that is not good for me. I run a country club. I have 1,550 members who are the CEOs. I mean, it is a very quote unquote powerful club in terms of its membership. They do not put up with things like that. That is meaning that I am irresponsible, and it calls into question my leadership ability. It is very important for you, even at your age, to stay away from Facebook moments, because as soon as you have one of those, you're just putting up a big stop sign, at least a big stop sign, if not a detour sign that detours around you. So very important for that. And finally, I think as I've demonstrated, you have to choose a mentor you could trust. And David Shagg has been that for me. I always get emotional when I talk about Dave because he's been a little bit of a dad. And a little bit of a brother. And a great friend. So, pardon me for a second. My Facebook moment. Jim Brewer was the same. Jim Brewer was a stern father to me. David, you'll probably know a lot more. Jim Brewer was for 34 years the general manager of the Los Angeles Country Club, who I drove from the airport to a little club in Hereford, Texas, which he still lovingly talks about today. He didn't know I didn't have a license. This was a gentleman who, when I left the country club, I interviewed at several places. I turned down the opportunity to be a general manager to go work for Jim Brewer. I had actually a very prestigious job. It was a small club down in Westchester County, but one that had a great membership. And I simply said to myself, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? Do I want to be in a small club? Because if I'm in a small club, it's hard to track out of a small club back up into a big club. I would be leaving the country club, what's considered a large club operation, and trying to track back in. So I turned down that job. I had David call Jim Brewer, and I said, because I had an offer on the table, a bird in the hand, but I was hopeful that Jim Brewer would hire me as his clubhouse manager, that I would have a time to spend with Jim Brewer on the West Coast. And I did that for several reasons. One, he's a great mentor, has a great track record of putting his clubhouse managers into large club operations. So I chose Jim Brewer as much as he chose me. And that's very important. I've done that in several aspects in my career, and it's always served me well. Make sure you know as much about them as they know about you. And when you're being interviewed, you're interviewing them too. And if you don't respect who you're working for, it ain't going to work. It is not going to work. You have to respect the organization that you work with. You have to understand what their ideals are. If you don't agree with their principles, if you don't agree, if you're a vegan and you're trying to work for Burger King, not going to work. I'm just going to tell you that. I've seen it so many times in my career. You have to be able to choose your path as much as they choose you, to work. So essentially, when I went to work for Jim Brewer, I went in as a clubhouse manager. I wanted to be on the West Coast because I'd never been there. And if you recognize, I'd never been out of the South before. I'm born in Amarillo, sixth-generation Texan, moved to Mobile, Alabama, moved back to Amarillo, went to school in Houston. I'm still in the South here. But when I left, I went to work for David, and it was 24 hours of driving to get to David. It was graduate, pack the car, and leave. I got up there to Dave and loved it. Stayed in Boston, Massachusetts, which if you're from the South, they don't really like Southerners up there. but we made it work. So when I left there, I went to California, and there's another culture shock going from Boston to California. And I will tell you, it was kind of funny. You know, when I left LA, and I worked for Jim Brewer for 3.5 years, and it was great. It was a wonderful. The club turned 100 years old. There was a lot of wonderful things going on around the club. I learned a lot from Jim. I learned about the political side about my job more than anything else. Operations, I got down cold from David. It was really how to run committees, how to work with the board, and those board relations, which were really important. And when I left there, I had a really great command. But it's kind of funny. When I left there, I went to Washington D.C. So I was kind of back into another Eastern club, and they said, "Oh, you're a California guy." And so it's interesting how you can be labeled something even though you really didn't pick up that label. Fortunately, I was able to overcome that with the help of a lot of good people. I chose the golf industry because I love golf. It's a great thing for me. You know, David and I play lots of golf together when we can. Hopefully, we'll play some later tomorrow afternoon. But it really is something that I do appreciate. It's something I love. It's something that it's a gift that my father gave to me, and it's a gift that I will pass along. In fact, I'm already passing it on to my daughter, Alexandra. She has a swing like me. You know, she doesn't have a half swing. You know, doesn't know how to swing halfway. She only swings really hard, really fast. But it's something. It's a challenge to me. It's how I spend my time, my leisure time. I have a great interest in it, and I have a great passion for it. And so when we talk about this golf course renovation that we did, this transformational renovation, and hiring Gil Hands, who's just a terrific architect, and again, you know, trying to surround myself with someone who is the best at what they do, because they're only going to make me better. Every time you have a chance to make that upgrade, make an upgrade. And I've often been accused of paying or overpaying for talent, you know. One of my friends, Luke O'Boyle, who always gives me grief, says, you know, listen, you always overpay for talent. And I say, well, look at the results. In fact, I think it's always something that I felt I never paid enough for that type of talent for where it got me. I love private clubs for a number of reasons in the industry. A, I've grown up into it, but B, they're their own individual identity. It's not a cookie cutter. I don't have to go in and be branded with you're this, you're that, you're a chain, you have this expectation. Even the 3 clubs that I've run, now they're common in the fact that they're all 100 years old. They have great memberships. I have to share this. My first member at Chevy Chase Club that I ran into, it was Easter morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. I walked down to the golf shop, my first day at work. Big day for the club, serving 1,000 people for brunch and dinner. And I introduced myself to the head golf professional, Jim Fitzgerald, and he said, well, let me introduce you to your first member. And he turned around, he said, Justice O'Connor, meet Mr. Reese. Mr. Reese, meet Justice O'Connor. Now this is the real thing about private clubs. And she turned to me. Now, she had a bucket hat on. She had a fishing lure stuck in the bucket hat, ready to go out to play golf at 7 o'clock in the morning with her husband, John. And she turned to me, stuck her hand out, and said, Kirk, I've heard so much about you. We expect great things. It gets even better than that. My good friend wrote me a letter of introduction about you. Well, her good friend was a member of mine at the Los Angeles Country Club, who when he found out that I was going to work at Chevy Chase Club, wrote her and said, you've got a great guy coming. So the relationships in the clubs, in that club, obviously the word was spread. There were 4 letters of introduction written for me when I left Los Angeles to go to Chevy Chase Club. There were 5 written when I came back from Chevy Chase Club to LA Country Club. And that just goes to show you the quality of people that I was dealing with. And when you get a letter of introduction, when people are writing you out of the blue, or writing for you on your behalf out of the blue. Now, Dick Houseworth, the man who wrote that letter, right after my interview at Chevy Chase Club, when I came back and he was sitting in the grill room, it was, I think, a Sunday morning, he said, Kirk, I'm the president of Paradise Valley Country Club. We're looking for a manager. Would you like to be our manager? And I looked at him, I said, Mr. Houseworth, just to let you know, I accepted another position. He said, where? I said, well, it's a club, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's just outside D.C. called Chevy Chase Club. And he just started smiling. I said, Mr. Houseworth, why are you smiling? He said, I'm a member there too. So, you know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think I just have a few more minutes, and I really just wanted to, I think, to reiterate a couple of things in my own life. Obviously, at 44, I've accomplished, I think, a lot in my career. I think, you know, my priorities obviously are my family and my wife and my daughter Alexandra and my soon-to-be born son, hopefully in about 2.5 weeks. So, but for me, it's about balance and trying to be a great father, a great husband, as well as a great club manager. But I always want to surround myself with people who I respect and who will work hard for me. And I have to work on things. I have hired a coach who works with me. It's not unusual, and I think it's probably very unusual in our business, but it's not unusual in the corporate world for people to hire a corporate coach. I've hired one who's a gentleman who actually worked in the Rusty Pelican chain. He was CEO of that for a number of years, and when he worked as the CEO of a wholesale food market and up in the Bay Area, and then retired to Utah, and basically he does executive coaching. I've started working with him over the past couple of months, and I will tell you that the things that he is doing with me are making me a better manager. I am 44 years old. I have a career in club management that most people would dream about, but I am still seeking advice. I am still looking to become better. I want to be a better boss. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I'm doing this coaching simply for that. So even at my age, even at my stage in my career, I am seeking to learn more. I'm seeking to hone my skills and to become better at what I do, to work better with my boards, to get in alignment with my board, and really as we go forward and looking at new challenges in our industry. So that's all I have in terms of my presentation. Unless anyone has any questions, I really appreciate all of you. I wanted to thank Greg Rocket for introducing me, and David Shagg, as well as Dr. Bowen, and certainly Dr. Rapal. Thank you for introducing me to the Hilton College so long ago. Thank you. Are there any questions?
You said you pay very well for talent. When has been the best pool that you found to develop that talent from, to pull that talent from?
Well, let me, in your case, or in this case, I will go to the club liaison, or the club management liaison, typically of any college, and I will say, who's your best and your brightest? Who's the person who will choke it till it's dead, who will take on responsibility, who doesn't have to be a straight A student, by the way, because I certainly wasn't, but certainly someone who has who can do the job, but really has, because it takes in the first 5 years, the demands upon you to do a great job, the time demands, very personal. We work like dogs. I mean, we do. We work 70 hours a week. We work 60 hours a week. We get paid not a lot of money, but we're gaining experience and we're gaining responsibilities. And the biggest thing, is you want to bring someone through there who has the acumen to not quit, and who really wants to succeed. And James Burns, who I used to work with David, James is now the manager of the Union Club in Boston. And James and I used to talk about having this sick feeling in our stomach about wanting to succeed so badly. Heather McMiniman, and I'm not saying that's is it healthy? I don't know if it's healthy or not. It's just that you want to win. You want to you want to be the best that you can be, and so that's the person that I'm looking for. So I don't, even before I get to check the Facebook, even before I get to check your I think your report card, even before your work references, I want to know that you have that type of determination. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you think that the economic situation, let's say that way, that we're experiencing right now has affected the industry?
Well, I'll speak for the private club industry. I sit on the board of the National Club Association. It's been a big concern of ours. Obviously, we're a leisure activity. In some respects, private clubs in particular are a leisure activity, and particularly for people who are a member of more than one club. If you're, in fact, that has been a big issue, I think, in the industry. Places like Palm Springs that have 130 private clubs, you can go into any of them today, tell them I'd like to join and just pay dues and don't pay initiation fees. And these fees used to be, 4 or 5 years ago, you'd pay $20, $30, $40, $50, $100, $200, $300,000 to join. There's only about 5 clubs down there that have that same type of initiation fee that they used to. There are 10 clubs that are really doing okay, and about 120 in danger of going under. And now, economically, I think that things are getting better. I think, but slightly so. And I think that there's a lot of money that are held by members of private clubs that are simply not going back into things like the stock market because there's too much uncertainty in the stock market. And until that money gets off the sidelines and into the economy, I just don't think this is going to turn around. It's not going to be these big flushes that come as they have in the past. I mean, 1991, 93, all these different downturns. Usually, there was a pretty good uptick following them in the year or two following them. Very slow recovery, and it's worldwide. It's funny how our stock market reacts to the different stock markets around the world. The fact that Ireland's in trouble, the fact that Spain may be in trouble, the issues that we don't even know that they're economic issues, and they're still significant issues. My state of California, we have the $25 billion hole to fill, and no one knows how to do that. And there's some very tough decisions that have to be made, but they will be made, and then we'll get along with it. But unfortunately, no one's quick to pull that trigger. So it's going to be a little while. But business, I think in general, business is somewhat rebounding, although it's not going to be a great uptick. So hopefully it will. Yes?
Hey, Kirk, I'm a hotel guy. We have a lot of female GMs
Yes.
in the hotel business that's grown over the last 20 years dramatically. What are the opportunities for women in the club business? How many GMs are there nowadays? And where do you see that going in the future?
Well, great question. There are great opportunities. I think, in fact, one of my old students, Laura Kalman, who I taught at UMass Amherst, is the clubhouse manager at Houston Country Club under Bill Schultz. I will tell you, my number one assistant manager right now is IVU. I personally think, quite frankly, guys, there are a lot of ladies, and the numbers speak for themselves. I think Dr. Bowen would know them best, but I think more women are graduating from hospitality programs than men right now. And that's reflected in the quality of student. It's reflected in the fact that, and these are just general demographic issues, people are getting married later. I think that was in the USA Today this morning. Average age for males is 28, average age for females 21. Those are higher than they've ever been. Dual income families, I'm seeing this demographic in my club, women working later. My wife is a practicing attorney. She's 35, she's a partner in a law firm. I get up at 5:30, I'm out of the house at 6. When I get up, she's working on a computer, 8.5 months pregnant. She has a client in Vietnam, a client in New York, a client in D.C., and so it's terrible for her. At 6 o'clock, her East Coast clients are coming online, and at 9 o'clock at night, her big client, her big case she's working on, is coming online at 9 o'clock at night. But I will tell you, as far as opportunities for women, great opportunities, no doubt about it. And quite frankly, I don't see the bias in club management that perhaps would have existed maybe 15, 20 years ago. I think that I think we have enough success stories, and you're starting to see an ever-growing presence of women in our industry. Yes?
What do you feel was your best and worst moment as a club manager?
I will tell you, I'll go right to the best. The best moment as a club manager was getting that doggone golf course open after 11 months of work. And most people don't realize that in a club, I mean, it's not, you don't make a decision and then just go with it. I mean, if you're in business, if you run a corporation, you make a decision and you just go with it. And in fact, I was telling Dr. Bowen and Greg today at breakfast, gee, I'm kind of glad the recession hit, because if the recession hadn't hit, I wouldn't have gotten the project to be as successful as it would have been. We had $9 million to spend on a project in 2007. And this is cash. I mean, it's, we don't, it's not in any stock market. We decided that we wanted to do a project. There were several very controversial aspects of the project that were proposed by the architect, which is odd because they were restoration. They were taking something back to what it used to been. The membership really had a revolt, and we had meeting after meeting after meeting with the members, and finally we had to negotiate a compromise. And right on the cusp, this is in 2008, right on the cusp of the economy going down the tubes, I was literally getting ready to sign a contract for $9 million to do this. And my president at the time was the managing partner of Lehman Brothers in Los Angeles. Now this gentleman, you can say what you want about Lehman Brothers. He's a really, really, really good guy. His family fortune took a hit to the tune of 8 figures. So when you think about recession and kind of, anyway, the issue, he called me, he said, Kirk, have you signed the contract? And I said, no, we're working on a few final details. He says, good, don't sign the contract. And we ended up delaying the project a year and only doing partially the work. But the work that we did partially, which was just one of the aspects of changing the ferry bunkers, were so dramatic and drew the membership in so well that the membership finally said, okay, we get it. Let's do the entire project the way you want to. So that took 5 years, just completed, just opened October 28th, and it's unanimous in my club, which is unusual that something is so well accepted. Probably the most difficult day in my club management career. Oh God, there have been a few of those. It's hard to characterize a single day as being bad. I mean, honestly, I've had a great career. There are times when you're just simply challenged, when things, these cataclysms that happen because a number of things go wrong. I've never had an absolute, complete meltdown or fall down, certainly at a premium event. But there have been a couple of times when you simply, have to look at the member and say, we failed miserably today. And the hardest thing is telling someone that, because in a private club, you're dealing with a customer that you have to keep as a repeat customer. When your members stop coming to you, when they don't trust you to do their events, when you don't invest and get their confidence in you, these people, they leave. And then they tell their friends, and then that's a bad place to be in a private club. I mean, in a hotel or restaurant, you have other opportunities to get people in and to use the facility. Private club, you have a very limited amount. So that'd be it.
You did a good job of wiggling that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great job. Kirk, thank you. Thank you very much. That was an inspiring story. Genuine. That hard work and commitment, and we're privileged to have you as a member of Eric's Club, and privileged to hear your story today. I hope you're all inspired and see that that's a career worth aspiring to, and I thank you all for being here. I want to make a presentation to you, Kirk. I've got a little prop here, at least I've been told it's here. I'd like you to stand up if you don't mind. Come a little closer, because we are friends. Kirk, thank you very much. We're privileged to have you as a member of Eric's Club. Here's a plaque to recognize your contribution today, and we look forward to having your membership. Now, I need you to step back and trust me. It's all about trust. Go ahead and sit down. That's a token of our appreciation. Your chair as a member of Eric's Club. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lots of opportunities to learn a little bit more about Kirk's career today. This afternoon, after lunch, there are a couple of events in Barron's, if I'm not mistaken.
2 o'clock in Cougar Grounds.
Cougar Grounds. Thank you very much. Please take the opportunity to hear more about Kirk, ask him some questions, and meet other members of Eric's Club. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Oh, my God. Thank you very much. You don't have to take that back. They'll say,
You're lucky I didn't get that story, when I was your student.